Episode 2, Mr. Jingles, probably should have been titled The Night Stalker or just Richard Ramirez, because he was in this episode probably more than anybody. It was definitely a focus on him, and he was certainly in it a lot more than Mr. Jingles, I think, personally. So Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, has located Brooke at Camp Redwood, and his first victim was the hiker from episode 1 who presumably was killed by Mr. Jingles, but has come back. So he's become some sort of time traveler from 1970, traveling through time and being killed over and over again, because after Richard Ramirez gutted him, the Night Stalker guts him, and I have to say it was probably the worst CGI that I have ever seen. Or maybe not ever seen, but it was really bad. I really don't understand who was in charge of editing and special effects and actually allowed that to go through. The hiker was gutted by Richard Ramirez, and the guts that came through were so obviously fake and so poorly done that I actually was rewinding a few times just to double check at how bad it really was. I don't understand how we got through the editing table. But with the bad CGI aside, this 1970s hiker gets killed twice. Not once, but twice by Richard Ramirez. So even though we could have assumed that he somehow survived Mr. Jingles from episode 1, he was definitely killed by the Night Stalker here twice. Not once, but twice, and then the second time just disappeared. So something's going on with this time-traveling hiker from 1970. So the show's taken quite a bizarre twist with time travel. Another bizarre thing that occurred was Richard Ramirez had a very strange conversation and some sort of connection with Margaret, the camp owner. She seems to really understand him. He seems to like her because she understands him. And she kind of seems to be using Richard Ramirez or plotting on using him to actually battle against Mr. Jingles or take out Mr. Jingles, I don't know. And Richard Ramirez now, because he killed that 1970s hiker, seems more fascinated by him than actually wanting to kill Brooke. So he took his ID after he killed him the second time, and he's asking questions about this hiker from the 1970s who keeps, coming back alive somehow, resurrecting himself, and asking questions about the hiker to Margaret, who revealed that he was actually killed in 1970 and it's impossible that he can come back. And Richard Ramirez says, yes, it's impossible. So something bizarre is happening with this time-traveling hiker. Richard Ramirez seems a lot more focused on that, and I think he's just trying to get answers as to what's happening. In his eyes, possibly he thinks this is some sort of out-of-world experience from another dimension or some sort of godly experience or spiritual journey. I really don't know what's going through Richard Ramirez's head, but Margaret is clearly trying to use him to take out Mr. Jingles. So this might actually become Richard Ramirez Night Stalker versus Mr. Jingles. I don't know. We get a bit of backstory on Brooke. She was actually going to get married, and this actually led into a pretty awesome, surprising scene on her wedding day. Now, I think they could have stepped it up a notch, definitely, because I think they definitely could have made it a lot more messier than what it was. It was definitely surprising. I was surprised at what happened, but I just think they could have cranked it up a little bit more and made it a bit bloodier. You'll see what I'm talking about once you watch the episode, but it did get me by surprise, and I really did enjoy it. I just wish they cranked it up, made it a bit more sick and twisted, bloody and messy. We learn a bit more about Xavier in this episode as well, who's wrestled into a car by an unknown man. Turns out that this person is in charge of some sort of porn industry, makes gay porn videos, and Xavier is his current star, who was kind of blackmailed into making a gay porn movie because apparently this gentleman saved him with a needle in his arm, found him in the street with a needle in his arm and saved him, cleaned him up, blah, blah, blah. So obviously Xavier had a dark past with drug addiction. He was cleaned up by this person who is now using him to make gay porn videos. He promised him was only going to do one, now he's doing a second one, and there's an altercation there because Xavier just wants to be an actor. He doesn't want to be a gay porn actor. He's not gay. He makes that clear in this scene. And this also leads to one of the more awesome death scenes that we've seen. I won't give too much away, but someone dies shortly after this scene takes place. The teenagers, the counselors, find themselves running away from Mr. Jingles. So the nurse has some sort of altercation with Mr. Jingles, but it cuts out, so we don't see if she actually dies. We don't actually know whether they communicate, but Mr. Jingles goes into the nurse's room or office or little first aid clinic, whatever you want to call it. He approaches her and he kind of cuts black, so we don't know what's going on there, but she runs out, alerts the teenage counselors, and then we hear the keys rattling, so Mr. Jingles is after them. They get in the car, hightail it out of there, and then they split up into two groups. Trevor, the new character that's hung like a horse, goes to his cabin to get the keys for his ninja, his motorcycle, while the nurse goes to her cabin to get keys. So they split into two groups. The Night Stalker is stalking one of the groups and Mr. Jingles is stalking the other one, and we come to what looks like the conclusion, the climax of an 80s horror movie, and it's only episode 2, so it's moving super fast. I don't know where they're going with this, and all I can assume is they're going to take a really different approach in the next few episodes. Maybe the third episode will continue on with all this. From there, I think that the show will take a much different turn, because right now it's just moving so fast. There's no way they can drag this kind of thing out for 8 more episodes. It's just not possible. It's already near the end of an 80s type slasher horror movie. They might go for the approach where they just focus on backstories, and all the episodes are going to be based on the past, what's happened in the past and leading up to this one moment, and then for the final episode come back to this one big moment. I hope they don't take that route. I hope they don't do that. I'd rather see a big twist in the story than just focus on the past and then they just comes back to episode 2 and what's happening, because right now the way episode 2 ends, it's pretty much like the show's about to end. The climax is near. So I just hope they don't stop it there, focus on the past for like 7 episodes and then bang. The eighth episode from here on in, which will be the 10th and like last episode of the season, they'll go back to episode 2. I hope they don't do that, but we have seen this kind of style from American Horror Story seasons in the past. We will see. It's very interesting, moving super fast, very, very weird, definitely with the relationship or connection between Margaret the camp owner and Richard Ramirez. Also the time-traveling hiker from the 1970s that keeps getting killed over and over again. I really don't know what's happening. I'm sure that we're going to get some more backstories in episode 3, but this episode, again, didn't disappoint. I'll rate this a very well-deserved 11 out of 13. Not quite as good as the first, because I really like that build-up in the beginning, the cheesy 80s dance from Staying Alive with John Travolta. It did move so fast, episode 1. I really did enjoy it, but I just felt like it was moving fast. And this one is moving even damn faster. It's like we're already right at the climax. I can't wait to see what the twist is, because there's no way we can endure another 8 episodes of what's happening right now. It's basically all over. So it'll be interesting to see in the next episode or 2 what kind of twist or turn American Horror Story 1984 takes. Thank you all for tuning in. If you like this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to see more videos. Click that notification bell right up above, and that way you'll be notified every time a new video hits. And of course, leave a kind, gentle, warm comment, or creepy one down below. I don't mind. I'll respond to everybody. Can't wait to see you again real soon.